All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties this morning. I hope you all are doing well. We're going to just let everybody in that's waiting in the lobby. Hope you all are doing great this morning, and we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kennedy Taylor, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing for asTech, driven by Repairify. And we are excited today to host our webinar called Following the Data, How asTech Gets to the Decision of OEM-C. We have two expert presenters today. Sitting next to me is Denise Caspersen, and Steve Fairall is actually in his vehicle because we are doing some on-site testing with engineers. So Steve is coming to us on-site while we're doing continuous testing, and Denise and I are located here in our Plano, Texas headquarters. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start with our expert introductions, and then we're going to go over how did we get here? How did asTech get to the decision of OEM-C? We're going to talk you guys through the data, years, and thousands of scans that we've done that help determine our OEM-C algorithm. We are going to talk about ensuring OEM-C accuracy. We're going to wrap up with addressing industry perception, and then we'll do a Q&A session. You guys will see on the screen in front of you, there is a QR code. Please scan that QR code at this time and feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we'll be answering all questions at the end. But that QR code allows you to ask questions throughout, and we'll get to them at the end. So with that, thank you guys so much for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to Denise to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you today, and just want to thank you for sharing your time with us as we walk through the asTech research process on the OEM-C. In preparing for this, I realized I've been in the industry nearly 30 years, and I started out with the Automotive Service Association as a researcher. So facts are fun, and research is fun. With ASA, I conducted the How's Your Business survey, which some of you may have seen, and created market analysis for shops and where to put their shops. So that was always very fun. And then I became collision division director. And in that role, I was recognized as one of the most influential women in the collision repair industry, and I appreciate that very much. I've also served in all positions on the SECA board, and I've served in all positions on the Women's Industry Network board. So one of the things that you may know about me, or you'll find out fairly quickly, is that I like facts, right? And I have a common saying that's always been trust but verify. And I think that's followed me throughout my career in the collision repair industry. With asTech, I joined pretty early on in 2016 with asTech and had a project management role, client integration, account management, developed the quality control program here at asTech, went into remote calibrations, which I found very interesting. And now I'm super excited to be a part of the research team because that allows me to explore the facts. And this will be fun to talk to you today about the OEM-C scan and how we get there using verified data. And I'll kick it over to Steve.
Hello, everyone. My career isn't exciting as Denise has been, but past 25 years. Can you hear me?
Steve, I can't hear you.
Please stand by. We're going to see if we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
perfect. There we go.
So much.
So my career hasn't been as exciting as Denise says, but for the last 25 years, I've had a couple of things. I built a company called Premium Electronics, which did automotive and residential electronics repair and replacement for insurance companies, fire, theft, electrical damages. I sold that company and I began another company called RMS Mobile Diagnostics, where we had trucks that went around to the shops and did, diagnostic programming, repair work for the body shops. I sold that company back in 2017 is when I joined asTech. And for the past 8 or 9 years, I've been on and off with them, working on special projects. This one, the last 2 or 3 years, working on the OEM-C project.
Thank you, Steve. So Denise, would you mind starting us off by talking about how did we get here?
Sure. I think an important piece to understand how did we get here is to understand the difference between the OEM scanning device and aftermarket scanning devices in general. A lot of you may know that the OEM uses the build data to then define the modules that are on that specific car that you've hooked into. So it bounces up to a server, gets the information, says this car has these specific modules, and then looks for those modules. Aftermarket is a little bit different. It's more of a generic process. An aftermarket scanner, when you plug it into the vehicle, it looks for all the modules possible, not necessarily the specific modules on the car, but all the modules possible. So what that told us here at asTech is that the limitation with the aftermarket is that you don't know what modules you've missed. And we recognize that folks use aftermarket tools all the time. And so that was one of our core drivers in creating this huge, extensive research project, which we've been doing since 2020. Behind that, besides not knowing what you miss is always providing a safe and proper repair. So that's our goal. That's been our true north for our customers. So in doing that, the OEM-C product and all this research saves time and increases production and boosts revenue for the shops. It provides a precise, efficient, and cost-effective alternative to the OEM. And who doesn't like saving money? You get the same product and you get to save money. Who doesn't like that? And addresses the concerns over carrier reimbursement issues. We heard that in the marketplace. And then we know that shops use an aftermarket device, may be missing modules, but they want a more affordable yet safe and proper repair solution. So asTech took the leap in 2020 and has done extensive research, scientific research, which I like, right? Facts are fun, and we like that ability to validate the data one-on-one. So asTech is the leader in OEM scanning. The bidirectional process that we have has put us in that place. OEM is always a choice within asTech for our users of the all-in-one. They always have the OEM option along with an OEM-C, which is the validated scan option. And so our goal here is to continue to be the leader in OEM, but also set a higher standard and a higher confidence level for the aftermarket scans through the OEM-C product and the all-in-one device.
Thank you, Denise. So moving on to the data, years, and thousands of scans, which you briefly talked about. Steve, can you talk a little bit more about this since you're so intimately involved in this process?
Yeah, back in 2020, we began developing the OEM alternative, we called it. So basically what we're doing is verifying that the OEM scan would match an aftermarket tool scan. And if it does verify, we would actually give it our blessing of being OEM-C. If it doesn't match, that's when we deny it and would recommend OEM as the only alternative. We've pretty much picked 2014 model years and upwards. That's what we see mostly in the collision centers that we've been dealing with. We've done about 93% of the vehicles we've tested. There's no coverage. The current model years, we have coverage for additional testings needed, and we'll go through the process and we'll go through a few examples in the next few slides.
Can I just expand on that for a second before we click, right? Because I think it's important for the audience to know the unique place that asTech is in the ability to identify cars in the marketplace that need scanning, right? So to the point of the 93% of vehicles tested, that is based on what we see our customers using. So our goal is to get to 100%. We're currently at 93%, and that's by year, make, model, trim. And then when we pick cars to scan every day or select, we look at those cars that are showing up as no coverage, meaning we haven't seen them, or we haven't been able to accomplish the goal, right? So that's an important piece of the research. And then we're starting to see 2025 show up in the yards, and that's a current year. So we're trying to scan those cars in addition to the regression testing for other cars. And then we also, when we're doing the scanning process, when we're doing this testing on year, make, model, trim, it's not a one and done. It is a validate on year, make, model, trim, test again on year, make, model, trim, test again on year, make, model, trim. So there's multiple tests on one year, make, model, trim in order for it to become an OEM-C. So I just wanted to highlight those because that's a fun part of research and validation.
So the process, go ahead, Steve.
So yeah, we developed this process to verify these scans. So first thing we do is identify a VIN that needs to be scanned out in the yards that we go out to and check cars. We set up at the van, we have the electricity out there, everything. So we're going to hook up, we're going to put a battery maintainer on it to get the voltage to be steady. We're going to use that to begin our testing. We're going to grab our OEM tool, plug directly into that car. We're going to check the OEM tool for any updates, so it's totally current. We're going to run a complete health check on that car, start to finish. And then from there, we're going to save that information and we're going to hold on to it. We're going to disconnect. We're going to reconnect into the aftermarket tool. We're going to check it for updates. We're going to perform a complete health check on that car. And then we're going to take those two scans and we're going to compare them scans. If they can match 100%, then that car passed its test. Now, I want to make sure you understand that we don't just go one and done. We go multiple times on that car at a minimum of 3 year makes and models trim of that vehicle that all have to pass before it'll actually be allowed to be an OEM-C scan. We also do regression testing on the cars. So every 6 to 9 months, if we pass the car, we'll still go back and test that car again just to confirm, because the car's has updates, the tools have gotten updates, has anything changed, and keep it current as a past one. So at the vehicle, everything's consistent. So we're parked in one spot. We have the same battery voltage, same weather, same internet, same day, same time. Nothing changes. We do the scan. Some of the additional stuff is, we've been doing this for 5 years. We've tested over 20,000 different vehicles out in the field. And again, we start with 14 and newer because that's what's in our test spots. And we're starting to see a lot of 2025s finally getting wrecked and get out there. And that's the other thing. All the cars we test are wrecked. We want to see cars with damage in them. We want to see cars that have codes in them. We don't want to go and do cars that are perfect at a rent-a-car place that don't have any issues with them. So we look for the cars to be actually wrecked, have codes in them, and see lots of data in them.
Thanks, Steve. So now let's get into the fun stuff. We're going to actually show you guys the testing. So Steve, walk us through this 2025 Subaru Forester.
Yeah, so here's a brand new Subaru Forester that we ran a scan on. The OEM tool had 28 modules. 8 of those modules had codes in. 3 of those modules had codes in, and there were 8 codes. Now, the aftermarket tool has 29 modules in it because it gives you an extra emissions OBD2 one, but it matched up identically on this car. So this car passes as one 2025 Subaru has passed. So we'll need another couple more Subarus of the same year, make, and model, and trim before it'll actually transition over to be an OEM-C car.
And on the screen here, you'll see the OEM report, the Subaru report, as well as the asTech report that has the matching modules. 2024 Honda Pilot.
Here's another one that passed. So this Pilot had 6 modules. 6 modules had codes in it, and there were 6 codes in it. 666 on this particular car. It's probably why he totaled it. So yes, this car was another car that passed for the OEM-C, and it will need another 2 or 3 of these cars to pass to become OEM-C on the tool.
And moving into what fails. So this is what we would consider not something we would recommend an OEM-C for.
Yeah, this one's a good one. So this particular 24 Corvette The OEM tool showed that there was 26 modules in this car. That 22 of those modules had codes in them, with a total of 74 codes. Our aftermarket tool scanned it, came up with 24 modules, 22 with codes, and 70 codes in the car. We actually missed the gear shift control module and the suspension control module. And the problem there is the suspension control module had an existing 4 more codes in it that totally does not show up in the all-in-one. So as of right now, this would be a fail, and the engineers would have to go back and do the work, and hopefully on the next update, we'd have a solution for this. But this car would fail and not make it to OEM-C.
And now the 2015 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Sport. Walk us through this one.
Yeah, it's an older 15 Jeep. You know, the OEM tool had 13 modules. 9 of the modules had codes in it, with a total of 36 codes. We picked up the same 13 modules. We missed a module, and we missed 6 codes. So this would be another one like the Corvette that would fail and would need to be looked at and updated to be able to catch those modules and codes.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that data. So again, we want to be transparent here and show the scan report from the manufacturer and how that aligns with the asTech scan report. So you can see when it is a perfect match, we are able to recommend OEM-C based off of data. And when it's not, OEM is what is recommended.
And the nice thing about asTech is even if you can't do OEM-C, you still have the OEM, which can be done.
Yeah.
So moving into addressing some industry perception, Denise, will you take us through this?
Sure, I'll do the best I can, and I know that there's Q&A afterwards. If I don't get something or you have more questions, be sure and scan that code, and we'll try to help. One of the perceptions out there is that we're moving away from OEM. What I will tell you, and the users of the all-in-one will be able to say, is if you get an OEM-C, there's always an option for OEM. It's just giving choice. It's giving validated choice. We know as body shops have scanners in their shops, right? And if they need an alternative to OEM, they would leave one bucket and go pick up their aftermarket tool and begin the scanning process. Again, as we mentioned at the very beginning, you don't know what you're missing on an aftermarket tool. asTech's OEM-C has solved that by doing this validated research. So when a customer is presented an OEM-C option, an OEM-compatible option, they're also presented an OEM option based on whatever their circumstances might be. So there's always choice. When research proves equivalent, asTech presents that OEM-C as the recommended option. Again, I feel like I have to repeat this multiple times. OEM is always a choice. As Steve mentioned earlier, we do regression testing to monitor because, as you know, out in the field, cars change, updates happen on your scanners, and so does it break something else? When there's an update to the all-in-one tool, before it happens, our team tests it in the yard on all the badges available to ensure that the updates didn't break something else. Hypothetically, you update your Honda on your aftermarket scanner, potentially it breaks something in Ford. So we validate it that way, but within Conquest and the OEM-C, we go backward and forward. Like I mentioned earlier, I focus on 2025s if they're in the yard, 2024s in the yard, but I also want to go back to 2014s on the same make, model, trim in order to do the comparison. So we do that. We do the regression testing, and then we do the forward testing. One of the things that sets us aside from anyone else, and I'm very proud of it as a fact-based person, is this research. There's asTech is unique in the fact that they're presenting an option that's been validated multiple times to our customer base through the all-in-one device. And this type of data allows us to then offer that $31 million indemnification policy that you've heard about or talked about. And so I appreciate that. And I also appreciate that we're still willing to continue the research, even though we've completed 93% of the car park. We're continuing to do the research. We're not going to make the assumption since it was good yesterday, it's good tomorrow, right? Because things change. So I feel like that sets us apart also as we try to ensure that we're providing the best possible scanning options to our customers through the all-in-one device.
So now we can jump into some Q&A. We've had some questions come through. If you didn't get a chance to scan the QR code, the beginning of the presentation, feel free to scan that now and you can submit your question to us and we will work through getting some of these answered for you guys. So let's start with, do you use any of the scan report data from the vehicles you service as part of this verification?
No, we do not use any of the scan report data for the vehicles that are submitted from our customers. I do know the year, make, models that come in as submissions in a generic way. So that helps me find the cars that our customers submitting that we haven't scanned yet. One of the things to think about here is if we haven't scanned something, then on the all-in-one, you get an OEM option and what's called an unverified option. What is the unverified? Unverified is two things, one of two things. One, we haven't tested it. So that's that no coverage comment that I made earlier. We haven't tested it. Or two, we've tested it and it fails. It's not described in those two forms. It doesn't say unverified 1 or unverified 2. It's just unverified. So to your answer, I'll circle back. The answer is no, we don't use the data from our customer base for this research. Remember, as we spoke about earlier, this is more of a scientific base where we want to use same conditions. Battery support is important. If you don't have battery support, you get the U codes. So battery support is important. The internet strength is important. So we want to have this isolated down to those factors. So that's a great question, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much.
So another question that came in, how do you decide what trim levels to scan for a popular car like a Toyota Camry or Honda Accord?
Great question. We scan all trim levels, right? Year, make, model, trim. That's a thing. And I tried to pull some research for example, we've scanned nearly 2,500 Toyotas. And that's our highest popular car to scan. It's also second largest manufacturer market share in the United States right now at 15%. So it's not like we pick and choose. It's year, make, model, trim. And selecting these cars is kind of like finding a needle in a haystack. You know, I specifically look for the cars that we have no coverage on or the ones that need multiple scans to ensure that they have the option to be an OEM-C. Again, it's multiple times, year, make, model, trim, different VINs. I don't go out and scan a Toyota Camry with VIN 1, 2, 3, 4, and then scan it again and scan it again and say, oh, that's 3 times. That's not how that works. We actually find different cars in the same make, model, trim. I hope that answered your question. We're not selective on trims. We are trying to cover all trims for variations. Thank you so much.
So this is a question that came in that I think needs just some clarity between OEM and OEM-C scans. So the question is, how is using the Launch Smart Link considered OEM? How is it an OEM scan if you are not connected directly to the vehicle with the OEM equipment? Denise, Steve?
Steve, I feel like you're better at that because you're more the I can make a pass at it, but I feel like you're the smarter man in the room.
I try to explain it as it's an extremely long extension cord. So the OEM tool is located in our data center that's located in Texas. And all we've done is plugged it into a smart link and it goes through the internet like a really long extension cord to your car. So the car is plugged directly into the OEM tool. It's just through the internet it's being run through. I know that kind of simplifies it maybe too much, but basically smart link on one side of your car, takes that data, shoots it through the internet. There's another link on the other side in our data center that takes that information and sends it right into the OEM tool, then the OEM tool back to the car.
Great answer. Thank you, Steve, for explaining that. I know when I first started with the company, that was something that took a little bit for me to get my head around as well. Another question came in, and Steve, this I feel like might be up your alley as well. Does OEM-C testing include functions in the scan tool, such as calibrations and initialization? How do we know these functions work compared to the OEM tool?
I'm making assuming stuff like functions like, triggering a windshield wiper or a headlight kind of deal, or coding, stuff like that. It's the same thing. If we've labeled it as OEM-C, means we've tested that vehicle and we verified that works. If it's under the unverified, like Denise has said, it means we haven't, or it's only completed 1 or 2 tests and we still need a few more before it's verified. But if it's under the OEM-C, that means we've actually plugged into that car with OEM and we verified that stuff's the same. If it's unverified, it means we're not there yet with that car.
Great, thank you for that. Another question, how good is your current coverage for European brands?
Oh, great question. So thank you so much. I actually tried to pull the numbers. European brands are smaller in the marketplace, so they're smaller in the yards, right? So, but we do have current testing. I'm not cheating. I'm just looking at my numbers. We do have coverage for Volkswagen, where we've tested Volkswagen, we've tested Audi Volkswagen brands. We test Mercedes. We look for Mercedes brands, Alfa Romeos, Fiats. So we do focus on those when they're in the yard. Remember, it's all crashed, no rentals, no dealership car lots, right? Because y'all are collision repairers. We need crashed cars. There's no point in doing this if on a non-crash car. So we do testing on European brands.
Another question that came in that I would like to give a shout out to our product team on, how often is your tool updated? Regularly. So monthly product releases or monthly product updates are released. And that's really important because we're constantly taking the data that we're seeing, what's been tested and is working, what needs to be retested, and all of those learnings are constantly going into our tool to make sure that we're providing the market with the most current and up-to-date technology possible.
No, that's totally fair. And just to add on that, right? As you know, you can see Steve sitting in that car. Steve is sitting in the car because he's at a shop with engineers to do research to improve the all-in-one device, right? And if you've had your all-in-one device, it's always good practice every day to go check for updates on the various makes or badges that are in there, because things are constantly changing, right? So updates are continuous, as those folks, if you're on the call, your aftermarket device gets updates. And just like the OEM device that we use here at asTech, the OEM tools, they're the latest, most updated version. So I would encourage everyone who's using the all-in-one device to make sure and do your software updates on a regular basis, so it will be the latest version. I hope that helped.
Thank you for that, Denise.
Yeah, I hope that helped.
So we have a couple questions regarding typical scan time. So I'm going to ask 2 questions at once because they relate to each other. So what is the typical time for a scan with this process? In a busy month, this particular shop does 8 to 10 pre-scans a morning incoming. And the other question is, how long does an OEM scan take since it goes through your servers? Does your tool do service functions?
Steve, you want me to get that, or you got that?
Couple questions in there. Go ahead.
Well,
I'll add at the end.
All right, very good. So the OEM-C is the average scan time for the OEM-C, which is car side, right? Just remember, it's car side. You're doing the work, you're doing the functions, is approximately 7 minutes. When you're doing a remote OEM and it's the same tool, the long extension cord, remember that it's a long extension cord from the OEM tool to your car, is approximately 20 minutes. It varies. As y'all know, the BMWs, they have a lot of modules, a lot of stuff going on, so they'll take longer, right? Different cars take longer based on their badge, but the average time for an OEM is 20 minutes. Average time for an OEM-C is 7 minutes, right? And then to the question of, does our device hit a server from the OEM perspective to then perform function test? It's like the OEM tool or car side. So the tests that are necessary from an OEM perspective are available when you're using the link and the all-in-one and requesting a remote OEM service, right? Or the Gen 2. That's always been our process. That's our patent, right? The bi-directional programming sets us apart. That's how we started as a company. So the function tests and things that happen on the OEM are capable car side.
Anything
I hope I
to
answered
add?
that.
Anything to add, Steve, before we move on?
Nope, you got it. I mean, that's exactly it. You know, you can do a Toyota scan with an OEM tool in 10, 15 minutes, or you can grab a Mercedes Benz and it takes, 49 minutes, right? So as long as you understand that when it comes to OEM, the manufacturer tool actually slows you down.
Mm-hmm. So looks like we have a couple more questions that have come in. All-in-one versus original scanner. Why do you request for a change between the two?
So can I trust but verify for the word original scanner? Do you mean the original asTech Gen 2? I'm going to make that assumption, right? That you're talking about the original asTech Gen 2, and then we've added in the all-in-one. The all-in-one is just that. It's both the OEM option always, and then the aftermarket, our OEM-C or unverified when we haven't tested it or it's failed. So it's still the Gen 2 equal plus the aftermarket equals the all-in-one. I hope that helps.
Perfect. It looks like we have one last question to wrap up with, unless anybody else has anything else they want to submit. Is there a monthly subscription, or is this a one and done purchase?
Well, I would recommend that you contact your sales folks. There are monthly subscriptions that are available. There's a gold plan, which also includes the great product of ADAS Think and Insights, OEM-C, and then, of course, you always have your OEM option. So there is a subscription. There's not a subscription in the sense of updates to the tool like you have with your other aftermarket scanners where you're paying for those. It's more a subscription for the product.
Great, thank you. All right, that's all the questions that we have gotten from you guys all today. We thank you very much for your time today and joining our first webinar. We're going to be hosting these monthly, so we look forward to seeing you on our next one. This recording will be sent out if you signed up with your email. Thank you so much. Have a great day.